Hi everyone, coming back for another video. This is a second video made for the first week. Just to let you know, I'm basically doing a quick summary of two different lessons. Um, on the first week of school, when we're doing this on day one, I'm going to be doing an overview of the unit along with an overview of the first couple of terms that I'm going to refer to you today. And on the second day, I'm going to do the second half of this video. So that's so to speak. So just letting you know. And the way that it goes with this conversation, it's going to be sort of scripted because parts of these lessons are from the CDC's 3Rs curriculum that I mentioned in the unit introduction. But some of it, you can't like predict what kinds of questions are going to be asked with the students. So who knows where this is going to go. So I'm just going to kind of do this quickly and just, take it one step at a time. So this is probably going to be a lot shorter than what we're going to end up doing in the 2 days in the class, but here we go. So sharing my screen, this is the particular topic page on the website, Sexual Health and Sexuality General Overview. You'll notice that there's an assignment that says Sex Stats Assignment. We are not going to be doing the Sex Stats assignment for this school year, and then my page just refreshed. Oh, great. So we're not going to be doing the Sex Stats assignment this year. We are going to look at some of the statistics and throughout history, like when we talk about sexual decision making, but that's a different story. So we're not going to really talk about that right now. This is a specific report summarizing the statistics from the CDC. And then down here are some other comprehensive websites. They have all kinds of awesome questions and answers and topics that are all approved for use. So we have the CDC, Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, Sexual Health Portal, beforeplay.org, Sex in the States, of course, the Rights, Respect, Responsibility official 3Rs curriculum, and the American Sexual Health Association. And then we go down, there's some featured YouTube videos. One of these is part of the 3Rs curriculum. And then we have some other things, some other videos here that are interesting for you to be able to look at. So these are two ABC News videos where students are just talking about pressures that they face. So in any case, let's just go with this first video. Going all the way up to the top, you see this slideshow. It says Sexual Health and Sexuality Unit. We're going to make this bigger now by expanding it. Here you go. This is an extremely basic slideshow. If anybody for extra credit wants to change this around, feel free to do that. I just put it together because to keep it simple out of time. I wasn't trying to make this super crazy. But basically, introduction, we talk about sexual health unit, sexuality. It's not sex ed. We're not teaching you how to have sex. We're teaching you how to protect yourself from being sexually active. Most schools call it the human sexuality unit. Um, Sexual health sounds like a better term for me, so I like to use that one as well. Okay, so you can read that. And also we go and talk about the introduction. One of the as you enters on this first day is to define sex and sexuality. So that's what we're going to do now. Human sexuality is any way in which a person's gender, identity, biological sex, sexual orientation, or intimate relations manifest through a person's personality. And that's from Rathas, Navid, and Fichtner Rathas. And number two is how humans experience and express themselves as sexual beings. And that's important because they are often but not always observable behaviors. But we as humans, the simple fact that we're mammals and use sexual reproduction means that we are sexual beings from the beginning. But that said, as humans, we also have tendencies because of hormone surges, because of influences externally and internally to be able to be curious of what it means to be sexually active. And sometimes we act upon that and sometimes we don't. We also realize that it's pleasurable and it's fun. So that's something that adds to the dilemma, because once you realize that it's pleasurable, you have to make these decisions on how often, when, how, and things like that. We'll talk about that in sexual decision making. In addition, and for obvious reasons, many people immediately associate sex and acts of sex with the term human sexuality. Defined, though, sex is a physical act of intimate affection that may or may not lead to reproduction, usually involving at least one person's genitals. And that's kind of like, people are like, usually, well, yeah, sometimes there's some incidents of sexual activity that would not involve a person's genitals, but we don't need to get into that because we primarily are speaking of oral, vaginal, anal sex, or when you use hands associated with somebody's genitals. So, in term assigned to infants at birth, usually based on what genitals they have. So, we do know that there's a difference between sex and gender, and more specifically, the politically correct term would be sex assigned at birth. So when you pop out of the womb, your doctor holds you up and they say it's a boy or it's a girl, and they base this on what they see in terms of the reproductive organs. And as somebody grows, they develop a sense of gender identity. And depending on what article you read, it can be anywhere between the ages of 2 and 4, 2 and 5, depending on where you're looking, and that they have this gender identity, and then they develop it or they suppress it and decide what ends up happening. And for the vast majority of people, the gender identity does match the sex assigned at birth, but and they would be considered cisgender. But if you did not match the sex assigned at birth, then you would be called transgender. And those are two terms that are increasingly more used in the medical fields nowadays, and in the health world, especially when we talk about sexual health. But those are lessons for a different day. We're just kind of doing a quick review here. And then, I just, everything I just said was what's basically on here. But in any case, there's a link on this slideshow if you want to go and read more information or see more information about that. So we're focusing on the first definition of sex, and sexual activity and sexual intimacy are intimate activities that promote sexual pleasure, relationship bonding, or reproduction. Generally involves genitals of at least one person and may include fondling, fluid exchange, and or penetration. That is a definition from Everyday Feminism 2016. And it is of note that sexually transmitted infections or disease can spread through any of the aforementioned activities. And there's absolutely more details on the sexually transmitted pages. We'll get to that. Now, if we were in class in person, there'd be a moving survey. I may or may not be doing this via Zoom polls. We might just be throwing some questions out there into the chat. And it gives your personal ideas about different questions that come up when it comes to human sexuality and things like that. We might be skipping it this year for time because I need to give you asynchronous break time for each class. But in any case, that would be the end. Understand, especially difficult for when it comes to adults to understand that are my age and older, because remember, we were trying to get rid of labels. So the necessity of having to or wanting to really have that label bothers people that are older that don't necessarily understand it. So we get into a little bit more about that. And then a lot of these things are asynchronous activities. So I don't really want to get into too much of it on this particular video, but if you have any questions, bring them up to class or put them in the comments or shoot me an email, and have a good rest of your day. Thanks.